Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt like you were holding back? Like you could say something, contribute something, but instead you just stayed quiet. You're not alone. And what's interesting is that some of the smartest people in the world do this regularly. There's this fascinating paradox we don't talk about enough. Many genuinely intelligent people deliberately hide how smart they actually are. It's not false modesty. It's not insecurity, though sometimes it looks that way from the outside. It's something much deeper, much more human than that. The truth is, this behavior is way more common than we realize. And understanding why people do this reveals something profound about how we work as human beings, about our fears, our needs, and the invisible rules we've learned to live by. So what's really going on in the minds of people who choose to dim their light? Let's start with the most obvious but most powerful reason: fear. Specifically, the fear of what happens when people realize how smart you are. Imagine this scenario. You're in a meeting and you see a solution to a problem everyone's been struggling with. You understand it instantly. But before you speak up, something stops you. It's a feeling, really. A quiet voice that whispers, "If I say this, what will people think of me?" This fear isn't irrational, it's actually based on something very real. Because when you show your intelligence, people react. Sometimes they react badly. They might feel threatened. They might label you as arrogant, even if you're just trying to be helpful. They might suddenly expect you to have all the answers, to be perfect, to never fail. The pressure becomes crushing. We've all seen it happen, right? Someone gets a reputation for being the smart one, and suddenly they're not allowed to struggle anymore. They're not allowed to say, "I don't know." They're held to a different standard. And a lot of intelligent people know this intuitively, so they choose a different path. They tone themselves down. They make themselves smaller to feel safer. It's almost like they're making a calculation in their head. Is it worth it? And often the answer feels like no. Here's something fundamental about human nature that we sometimes forget. We want to belong. We crave it. It's not a weakness, it's hardwired into us. We're social creatures. And being part of a group, being accepted, being liked, that matters deeply. But intelligence can create distance. When you see the world differently, when you think faster, when your curiosity pushes you to ask questions that others aren't asking, you start to feel like the odd one out. And that feeling of being different, of being set apart, it's uncomfortable. So what do people do? They blend in. They learn to code switch. In their workplace, they dim it down. In their family, they learn not to correct people or show off their ideas. In social circles where everyone's just trying to have fun and not think too hard, they pretend that's what they want too. It's a trade-off they make, often unconsciously. They sacrifice a little bit of themselves, just enough to feel like they belong. And for a lot of people, that trade feels necessary. The alternative, the feeling of being alone, even when surrounded by people, feels unbearable. But this doesn't happen in a vacuum. The way we behave now is shaped by where we've been. Think about a kid who grew up asking too many questions, who wanted to know why and how and what if. Maybe their family wasn't the type to appreciate that kind of curiosity. Maybe they got told to stop showing off, to be humble, that asking so many questions made them annoying. Maybe they got bullied at school for being the smart kid. Over time, they learned a lesson: being smart gets you hurt. So they learned to be quiet. They learned to hide. And even as an adult, even when they're no longer in that environment, that lesson is still embedded in them. It becomes a reflex. It becomes who they are. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe they grew up in a family where humility was sacred, where your worth wasn't measured by your achievements or your intelligence, but by your character and your modesty, where saying you were good at something felt like a sin. In that world, hiding your intelligence wasn't a coping mechanism, it was a virtue. And that belief system doesn't just disappear when you become an adult. These early experiences, these moments that seem small at the time, They create grooves in our minds, and we follow those grooves our whole lives. Here's where it gets really interesting, because some of the people hiding their intelligence the most are the ones that actually have the most right to show it off. Yet they don't. Why? Imposter syndrome, the gap between what they know and what they feel. An intelligent person gets an achievement. They accomplish something genuinely difficult, but instead of feeling proud, they think, I just got lucky, or they convince themselves it wasn't that impressive anyway, or they worry that next time they'll be exposed, that people will finally realize they're not as smart as they appeared to be. So they stay quiet. They stay in the background. They figure if they don't say anything, if they don't draw attention to themselves, nobody can find out that they're a fraud, because deep down, that's what they believe about themselves. The irony is devastating. They hide not because they're not intelligent, but because they're terrified of being found out as not intelligent enough. The voice of doubt is louder than any proof of their ability. But it's not always about insecurity. Sometimes intelligent people hide their abilities for entirely practical reasons. Being labeled the smart one comes with an invisible weight. It means more responsibility. It means people come to you with their problems. It means you get volunteered for leadership roles you never wanted. And some people recognize this early on. So they do something clever. They opt out. They hide their intelligence to protect their time, their energy, their life. It's actually a form of wisdom. They understand that visibility comes with a price, and they decide the price is too high. Other times, intelligent people stay quiet for a different reason. Observation. They watch. They listen. They understand the room before they speak. This isn't about hiding out of fear. It's about being strategic. They gather information, they understand the dynamics, and then when the moment is right, they speak. And when they do, it lands. It has more weight because it's more intentional. There's something genuinely smart about that kind of restraint. Culture matters more than we acknowledge. In some communities, humility isn't just valued, it's required. It's woven into how people see themselves and each other. The idea of self-promotion, of standing up and saying, look at me, look what I can do, it feels wrong. It feels disrespectful. And this isn't just about individual choice. There are real consequences for breaking these unspoken rules. Social disapproval, being judged as arrogant or cold or selfish, being excluded. So people learn early, you don't talk about how smart you are. You let your work speak for itself. You stay humble. You let others have the spotlight. And over generations, these norms become so deeply ingrained that people don't even question them anymore. And here's something beautiful that we often miss. Some people hide their intelligence not because they're insecure, but because they're empathetic. They understand that for some people, being reminded of how smart other people are can hurt. It can bring up old insecurities, old wounds about not being good enough. So they simplify their language. They don't drop complex ideas into conversation. They meet people where they are emotionally and intellectually. This is emotional intelligence at its finest. It's seeing someone, understanding them, and adjusting yourself to make them feel more comfortable. It's a form of kindness, actually. And it's invisible. Nobody gives you credit for the intelligence you chose not to display.
And then there's personality. Some people are just wired differently. They're introverts, or they're deeply introspective, or they just prefer the inner world to the outer one. For them, intelligence isn't something to show off. It's something to explore internally. They enjoy thinking. They enjoy the quiet moments when they can sink into ideas. The thought of getting attention, of becoming known as the smart person, it doesn't appeal to them. It actually sounds exhausting. They don't hide their intelligence because they're afraid. They hide it because they're not interested in the performance aspect of being smart. Intelligence for them is private. It's sacred even. They share their ideas with people they trust, with people they've built real connection with. But the idea of proving themselves or impressing strangers, that feels inauthentic. That's just not who they are. And that's okay. That's actually valid. It's not a limitation, it's a preference. When you step back and look at all these reasons, the fear, the need to belong, the wounds from the past, the doubt, the strategy, the culture, the empathy, the personality, you start to see something important. People hide their intelligence for deeply human reasons. It's not weakness, it's not stupidity, it's protective, it's adaptive, it's often wise. In fact, here's the real twist. The ability to hide your intelligence when necessary requires actual intelligence. It requires self-awareness. It requires understanding how people work, how to read a room, how to navigate social dynamics. It requires emotional maturity. The people doing this are often more intelligent, more perceptive, more socially skilled than the ones who blurt out every brilliant thought without a filter. So the next time you notice someone staying quiet, being humble, not talking about their accomplishments, don't assume they're not smart enough. Maybe they are smart enough to know exactly what they're doing. Maybe they're choosing their moments. Maybe they're being kind. Maybe they're protecting themselves from a world that doesn't always reward intelligence the way we think it should. Maybe, just maybe, staying hidden is the smartest choice of all.